Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Ramadan Mubarak. Welcome to today's episode of CAIR on Air in our special Ramadan series. I'm your host, Edward Ahmed Mitchell, the Deputy Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations. Thank you all so much for joining us. A special thank you to our listeners on American Muslim 360. We always appreciate your presence and participation. Before we begin the program, I just want to note some logistics that if you have any questions you'd like to share during the program, you can post them in the comments on Facebook, and we will try to answer those questions live on air, inshallah. If you have any topics you want us to address on future programs, you can also post those suggestions in the comments or email us at info@cair.com. And the next thing I want to note before we get into the meat of the program is that, as you all know, we are now in the second half of Ramadan, mashallah. We are almost to the last 10 days. May Allah grant you an accepted and blessed month of worship and allow all of us to improve and to finish this month of Ramadan strong and safely, inshallah. We encourage you during this month, of course, of fasting to remember it's also a month of giving. And we encourage you to keep CAIR in mind for your donations as you support many worthy organizations across the country. Ramadan is a critical month for CAIR and so many Muslim organizations. As you all know, the past year, was very difficult economically for many people around this country and many organizations. And so we have a goal we're trying to hit. We're not there yet, but we're making good progress, alhamdulillah, but we really need your support. So thank you to everyone who has donated, especially our monthly donors, our major gift givers, and everyone who's donating just a little bit. All of that counts and all of it helps. So we encourage you to go to cair.com/donate or cair.com/Ramadan to make a donation to support our efforts this month. Help us to defend Muslims. Dedicate your charity to the defense of Muslims during Ramadan, inshallah. So thank you all so much. And with that, let's dive into the program. Inshallah, today we're going to be discussing an important topic, which is President Biden's decision to nominate his first 11 picks for the federal judiciary. Several of them had their hearings before the Senate yesterday. And so we're going to talk about these 11 nominees, their experiences, their diversity. And obviously one of them is the person who would be the first Muslim confirmed by the Senate to serve as a federal judge. Many people excited about that. There are some concerns, some questions about that nominee. We're going to dive into that issue as well, inshallah. So let's bring on our guest for today. Our first guest, Robert McCaw, the Government Affairs Director of CAIR National. Assalamu alaikum, Robert.
Walaikum assalam and Ramadan Mubarak to you and our viewers.
Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you so much, Robert. Alhamdulillah. So happy to have you here with us today. So first, I believe it was last month or so, maybe a little before, that President Biden announced he was nominating 11 initial individuals to serve as federal judges, confirmed by the Senate. Very diverse group of people. Before we talk about the diversity, can you tell us briefly, who are these nominees? And what are their current positions?
Yeah, most definitely. The first suite of nominees he offered were 11 different nominees, filling in different district court and other seats from across the nation. We have Judge Kentucky Brown Jackson, nominated to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. And Judge Jackson has served on the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia since 2013. And of course, everyone I'm going to mention has amazing legal pedigrees. I can't get into them all. It'll be the whole program. There's also Tiffany Cunningham. She was nominated to the United States Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. You have Candace Jackson Akuimi, who is a nominee for the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit. You have Judge Deborah Boardman, who's a nominee for the United States District Court for the District of Maryland. You have Judge Lydia Grigsby, who is a nominee for the United States District Court for the District of Maryland. And you also have Julian Niels, a nominee for the United States District Court for the District of New Jersey. Julian Niels is a county counsel for the acting county administration for Bergen County, New Jersey. Sorry, I did miss a couple of the other experiences of the judges. There's Judge Florence Pan, nominee for the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. And Judge Pan has served as an associate judge on the Superior Court for the District of Columbia since 2009. Again, as we mentioned earlier, you have Judge Zahid Koreshi, a nominee for United States District Court for the District of New Jersey. And Judge Koreshi is the United States Magistrate Judge for the District Court for the District of New Jersey, and he's been there since 2019. You have Regina Rodriguez, a nominee for the United States District Court for the District of Colorado, and Rodriguez has been a partner with the William Cutler, Pickering and Hale and Dorr law firm in Denver, Colorado since 2019. And she's also the co-chair for the trial practice, co-chair for the trial practice, and handles cases involving, complex litigation in Colorado. You also have Margaret Strickland, a nominee for the United States District Court for the District of Mexico. And Miss Strickland is a named partner at McGraw-Strickland LLC in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And she's served there since 2011, and she's done civil rights and criminal cases. And you have Judge Rupa Ranga Putagunata, a nominee for the Superior Court for the District of Columbia. And the judge has served as an administrative judge for the DC Rental Housing Commission. And prior to joining the commission, they were a solo practitioner from 2013 to 19. And so, again, you have a big list of diverse candidates that, I think it's really important to note that we see this commitment to diversity from the Biden administration. Female and minority representation, lived experience is important in the judiciary, especially when, as we know, the judiciary in America is majority white and male.
Yeah. And also, I think the one thing I want to highlight before we even talk about the gender diversity, the racial diversity, is the diversity of backgrounds and experiences. So, on that list, if you look at the biographies for these individuals, a lot of them have unique experiences that the federal judiciary often lacks. So many federal judges are career prosecutors or, been on the bench for 10, 20 years before getting elevated to the next position. A lot of these people have worked in private practice, have worked as some have worked as public defenders, defense attorneys. You mentioned the last nominee who has worked on the DC Rental Housing Commission. So really a diversity of experiences that will hopefully enrich the judiciary and give a unique perspective about the people who are coming before these courts, right? Obviously, in theory, all judges are simply calling balls and strikes, and no matter who you pick, they're going to end up issuing a ruling based on the law. But we all know that human experience matters in making decisions. Judges are not robots, right? The experiences they bring to the judiciary certainly do influence how they understand the facts of a case, how they understand the law, and how they are going to interpret the law. And so, I think for Judge Putagunta, for example, currently serving as an administrative judge, I think her experience not only with the DC Rental Housing Commission as a judge, but also from 2013 to 2019, she was a solo attorney, and she was representing indigent criminal defendants in trial and on appeal. That's a defense attorney helping people who could not afford attorneys, right? Not just a corporate defense attorney defending big corporations, but rather an attorney who was defending vulnerable people who were accused of a crime and could not afford attorneys. That's a really important experience to have on the judicial bench. You mentioned,
and you can also look at Judge Brown Jackson, who prior to serving on the federal bench, served as the vice chair of the United States Sentencing Commission since 2010. So you have a judge there that understands, the issues of sentencing and disproportionate sentencing in the United States.
Right. And if you look at her earlier career, she was early on a public defender, assistant federal public defender. So again, also important to kind of diversify the judiciary, get away from having all prosecutors. And by the way, I'm a former prosecutor, so I say that with no sense of hostility towards judges who have that background. But obviously, you need to have people who have been on the other side of the aisle, right? People who have been dedicated to defending people, defending clients, and making sure they're holding the government to account to its burden. And so that's so important to have people with that background as defense attorneys on the federal bench. So great diversity in terms of experiences. Still, quite a few prosecutors, but and people who have more typical backgrounds with corporate law. But it was really good to see that sort of diversity of experience. Now, Robert, I think also we've got, as we noted, some good racial and gender diversity, right? Representation does matter, right? Being able to have judges who reflect America is important in a democratic representative government. So can you tell us a bit about the diversity of the candidates?
Yeah, when you look at these 11 candidates, I'm just counting again, but I think 5 of them are African American. 1 is Asian. The majority are female. 1 is Hispanic. 1 is, Muslim, which, our community is very excited about. But when you look at that, it's definitely much different than the nominees we saw from the prior administration.
Okay, so so progress, right? That's good. We want to increase representation. So now let's hone in on Judge Koreshi, who would be, if he is confirmed, the first Muslim American confirmed to an Article 3 position on the federal bench. Now, he would not be the first federal judge. In fact, the first technically Muslim federal judge was an opponent, I believe, in Oregon some years ago. But that was not an Article 3 confirmed position. You don't have to go through the Senate confirmation process to become a magistrate judge. So Judge Quraishi would be the first Senate confirmed Article 3 Muslim judge on the federal bench. And during the campaign, President Biden made very clear he planned to nominate diverse candidates to the federal judiciary. I mean, he specifically said that if he has an opportunity to appoint a Supreme Court justice, he is going to appoint an African-American woman, which has never happened before. So I think the Muslim community, especially the Muslim legal community, was looking forward to seeing, the many qualified Muslim attorneys working across this country as judges, as civil rights attorneys, public defenders, corporate attorneys, et cetera, to see them elevated to the federal judiciary to enrich the bench. And again, it's not only about the rulings that are being issued, but it's also about the ability to have judges who are working alongside judges of different backgrounds, right? Judges talk to each other. Judges learn from each other. Judges can discuss cases with each other, especially at the appeals court level. So that ability to hear from a Muslim judge, right, in your circuit, who can share the unique experiences of the Muslim community and the unique perspective on the law and its impact on communities, that's so important, we think, to have Muslims on the bench. Now, for Judge Koreshi, obviously, I think many people were excited. There have been some concerns about his nomination, and that relates largely to a few aspects of his background, his experiences, and what exactly he did in a few particular roles. Before we get into that, we want to start by just letting the community hear from him in his own words. I want us to pull up his opening statement that he gave at his Senate confirmation hearing yesterday. Let's play that. It's a few minutes long. If we run out of time, I will step in and interrupt it so we can make sure we finish on time. But let's at least play the beginning of that. Go ahead. And to our producer, I can't hear. Robert, can you hear any audio?
I can't hear it yet.
Okay. To our producer, we're not hearing any audio from Judge Gracie, so just make sure we're getting the audio feed.
I'd like to thank, of course, the president for nominating me, and also my home state senators, both Senator Booker and Senator Menendez, for their consideration, recommendation, and support of my nomination. I share Mr. Niels or Judge Niels's comments. Thank you, Senator Booker, for your kind introductory remarks from earlier today. I have a few folks with me that I'd like to introduce. First, my mother, Shahida Koreshi, is here. I don't have enough time, Senator, to properly introduce my mother. What I will tell you is that when I asked if she would like to attend today's hearing, she said she would walk from New Jersey if needed. So I hope that gives you some context for the love and bond that I have with my mother. Unfortunately, I'd like to mention my father, Dr. Nisar Koreshi. Unfortunately, my father cannot be here today. He tragically passed away last year to the COVID-19 virus. I know he would have been very proud to be here sitting alongside my mother behind me. And I feel his presence today in this room. I'd also like to thank and introduce Jenny Chung and Levar Tan, 2 individuals very close to me who were especially supportive of my nomination and supportive of me throughout this process. And they were kind enough to accompany both me and my mother here today, and I'm grateful to have them. Lastly, Senator, I'd like to just address my children who are back home in New Jersey, hopefully in class, but I have a feeling they are trying to log into the video link to today's hearing. My daughter Zoe and my son Aiden, who I love very much. I've said this before, publicly and privately. I've held many titles and many roles in my life. The one that means the most to me in my life is that of being their father. So I'm grateful for the two of them, although they could not be here today. Senator, thank you for indulging me. It's an honor to appear before this committee with my friend Julie Niels and Gina Rodriguez from Colorado, and I welcome the opportunity to answer any questions you may have regarding my qualifications.
Okay, thank you. We can take that off screen. So that was Judge Koreshi's opening statement. So Robert, tell us a bit about his background. I know we've got his bio here, and obviously I think his resume has been made public, and he's also got his Senate questionnaire. Tell us a bit about Judge Koreshi's background.
Yeah, I mean, Judge Koreshi is actually a relatively young guy. He's 45 years old. He's primarily a career civil servant. Upon graduating law school in 2000, he served as a law clerk in the New Jersey Superior Court. He did 2 years of private practice and then left private practice in 2003 to join the United States Army Judge Advocate General's Corps, where he attained a rank of captain before being discharged in 2007. At that time, he was stationed in Germany and twice in Iraq to support the Iraq war efforts, both in 2004 and 2006, and we can get into a little bit of that later. In 2007, he became an assistant chief counsel in the office of the chief counsel at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in New York, and he was there for about a year during the Bush administration. And then he became the assistant United States attorney for the United States Attorney's Office in the District of New Jersey from 2008 to 13. And he's, from 2013 to 16, he then went back to private practice. In 2019, though, he was appointed as the United States Magistrate Judge of the United States District Court for the District of New Jersey. And at that time, he was the first Asian American to sit in the federal bench in New Jersey. And so, he served in that role until just recently, where he was then nominated by President Biden in March to currently serve for the United States District Court Judge.
Okay, so very experienced individual, worked in the federal government for quite some time, and so he was, and his nomination was strongly supported by Senator Cory Booker out of New Jersey, and who also spoke at his confirmation hearing. So the two things that have raised questions, right, unanswered questions so far about Judge Koreshi, and these questions have been raised in an article that was published by Slate a few nights ago, and within the Muslim community, this discussion has been going on for at least a month, are two aspects of his biography. And so I'll note those two things. I think you referenced them. So one is that his work history indicates that he served as a, quote, detention legal advisor during the occupation of Iraq. And that he also served as the chief of legal aid for approximately 20,000 soldiers, Department of Defense civilians, Red Cross personnel, and U.S. private contractors during the occupation of Iraq. In addition, he served with ICE, I believe, in 2008 during the final year or so of the Bush administration, I believe, as assistant chief counsel. So, obviously this raised some concerns in the civil rights community and in the Muslim community. And I think, I speak for many Muslims when I say that we all strongly hesitate to even express the concern publicly, right? A Muslim nominee already has to deal with the threat of facing anti-Muslim bigotry and racism, right? Anytime you nominate a Muslim for a public office, they're going to face bigotry, they're going to face discrimination, whether it's open or quiet. And for any Muslim to attain a position, whether it's a government position, a political position, they have to deal with a lot of backlash. So we always hate to have to even discuss these issues in public. Now, my understanding is that the Muslim community has made efforts to try to learn more about these issues behind the scenes. I know, Robert, you directly reached out to the White House to try to find out more, right? To find out exactly what Judge Koreshi did as a detention legal advisor. You know, what detention centers was he advising during the occupation of Iraq? You know, did he become aware of any misconduct at those detention centers? What did he do about it? And similarly, what did he do, you know, when he was an advisor to private contractors in Iraq, which includes mercenaries like Blackwater, presumably? You know, what advice was he given? Did he learn of any misconduct? What did he do about that? These are questions that we would ask of any judicial nominee, right? And so we have to hold all of the nominees to that same standard. Just because we're happy about seeing a Muslim or person of color doesn't mean that we, you know, are going to give them a free pass on asking questions. So, Robert, I believe you have reached out to the White House quite a while ago to try to learn a little bit more privately. Did you get any response, any information?
Yeah, we didn't get a response to CAIR's letter, and we sent it to staff we knew, so it didn't go unnoticed. It's been kind of a policy for the White House right now to more be engaging members of the Muslim community that are just outwardly supportive of this nomination. So we've heard a little bit of silence on this, on these questions.
Gotcha. And so, you know, and the thing about when you're nominated for a judicial position or any government position by the federal government, usually you don't talk, right? If you're going to make any comment, it's going to go through the White House or it's going to happen in your Senate confirmation hearing. So Judge Koreshi is really not in a position to answer these questions publicly, except at his hearing or through the White House. And so it didn't come up at his hearing. I don't think any specific questions were asked about what he did as a detention legal advisor. Was he aware of any misconduct? What did he do about it? What did he do for ICE? Those questions did not come up with specificity at the hearing. So, Robert, I think we've reached out to the Senate. We've sent them a letter. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so yesterday we did address a letter to Chairman Durbin and the committee. We reached out to 85 staff members prior to the hearing so that they could just, you know, not only seek CAIR support for this diverse list of nominees that the Biden administration is putting out, and, you know, CAIR being happy that a Muslim is among them, but just that we are asking those very same questions you asked earlier. You know, what did Judge Koreshi do when he served in the military in Iraq? You know, who did he report to? You know, did he provide any legal advice on, you know, detention centers, especially like issues with Abu Ghraib, because he was in Iraq during that time? And I want to be clear, this is not CAIR insinuating that he did or we know something. These are just questions that are being left unanswered that we'd like to answer because, you know, CAIR has not endorsed or opposed Judge Koreshi. Want to make that clear too. But we would like to know what the gaps are in his public resume on that. And when you go into his questionnaire responses to the committee, he does list his time in Iraq and with DHS, but he doesn't actually provide much information on that. So we didn't hear it in the hearing. We didn't see it in the questionnaire. So now what we're doing is we're asking members of the committee to submit the same questions, Edward, that you raised now to the official committee record, which I think is open until next Wednesday. So we are reaching out. But, you know, CAIR isn't actually the only Muslim organization behind the scenes, you know, voicing these questions. You know, I don't name names, but these offices have heard from other Muslim groups with the same concerns. So, you know, we join our other, you know, allied Muslim community organizations and privately and now publicly to a degree expressing these concerns and just seeking clarity. And that's what I would really couch this as. We're seeking clarity because we would love to get behind a Muslim candidate for office. We just need to hammer out what are, you know, those gaps in this history that we're not aware of.
Right. And I'll note that in the Slate article that was published a few days ago, I think a White House official, I don't know if they were on the record or off there or anonymous, said that he had nothing to do with Abu Ghraib. So alhamdulillah, we take that and accept it. So that's good. But the question still remains, what did he have something to do with in Iraq? And again, this is a question you ask of anyone. If you find out that any nominee for a government position served as a detention legal advisor in Iraq during the occupation, we know, you know, what abuses were going on during the Iraq War across the country against Iraqi prisoners, right? It wasn't just Abu Ghraib.
It wasn't just one prison.
Right. It was common. We know about what happened in Guantanamo. We know about what happened in Afghanistan. This is a serious problem because of the Bush administration's policies that trickle down, through the military's actions in some facilities, not all places, but in some places. So the question is, who did he advise? What was the advice? And it may be that Judge Koreshi, and I hope this is true, was playing a positive role as you can in that situation, in holding soldiers in the military to account, making sure they were living up to the highest standards of the military and the Geneva Conventions. And so that's an unanswered question. And so we just need the White House to address those questions. And if they do, and the answers are positive, then hopefully, that will allow the community to rally behind this and other nominees in the future. But as Muslims, representation matters to us, but experience matters more. Values matter more, philosophy matters more, all of that is important too. So no matter who's being nominated, right? Whether you were a white evangelical Christian or a person of color, a Muslim, right? We all have to hold these nominees to the same standards, ask the same questions. Now, the one nice thing we want to note is that we've got a special guest here from New Jersey, the executive director of CAIR New Jersey, Salahuddin Maqsood. Assalamu alaikum, brother Salahuddin. Let's bring him on.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam rahmatullah.
Good to see you, Salahuddin. So give us a little a flavor of the reaction in New Jersey. I think that there are some people in New Jersey who know Judge Gracie well, especially the Muslim community, and have endorsed him. And you've also heard some concerns there. Tell us a bit about the reaction in New Jersey.
Absolutely. So it's been a mixed bag in New Jersey. Off the bat, we had the New Jersey Muslim Lawyer Association offer their support for the judge. Prior to him being appointed as a federal judge, he was also granted the Trailblazer Award by the NJMLA a few years back when he became a magistrate judge. So there is a history there between the judge and the New Jersey Muslim Lawyer Association. They were thrilled about his appointment. Overall, there is a joyous kind of nature amongst the community member. Representation is important to us, and we value that as an aspect of the 11 candidates that were chosen. But with that being said, there are some other individuals in the community, like other lawyers, elected officials, political operatives, and various civil rights leaders throughout the state of New Jersey that do express some concerns that you have already mentioned prior. A lot of unanswered questions about his history, and the fear of tokenization is a concern amongst the community members. Others are also a bit concerned about the fact that some Muslim community members and organizations were sidestepped or felt as if they were not consulted in the process of choosing Judge Koreshi. So it's a really mixed bag in New Jersey. Overall, we are enthusiastic about the step towards representation, and we welcome this, and we are looking forward to having more answers and just clarity on his history. And some transparency about his involvement in Iraq and with DHS and much of what was already described.
That's very helpful. Thank you for sharing that, Salahuddin. I think you brought up an excellent point. We had mentioned that this raises another issue, right, which is how the White House is going to interact with and receive feedback from the Muslim community, right? Under the Trump administration, obviously there was not a lot of conversation happening either way for obvious reasons. Under the Obama administration, there was some, but there was, I was in law school at the time, but I've heard that there was, a situation where sometimes the federal government decides they're going to reach out and work with certain Muslim leaders or certain Muslim organizations who don't rock the boat too much, who are very publicly solicitous of the president, right? And those organizations that may be a little tougher, may speak up a little more vocally, maybe keep them at arm's length, or that are often targeted by hate messages. So, we've also got to make sure that, we are holding, as a community, ensuring that we are speaking with not necessarily a united voice, because you have diverse voices, diverse opinions, that's fine, but that none of us are being used to squeeze out other people, right? That we're not being used to give the stamp of approval to something that the community at large may not support. So that's a separate issue, maybe a whole different show we could talk about. The one last thing I want to discuss before we wrap up the show is something that happened in the hearing. So we noted that the questions that needed to be asked about these two outstanding issues were not asked, but there was one question that was asked that I think we feared might come, but it came from a direction we did not expect. In a way that we did not expect. Let's play the question that was asked to Judge Koreshi about Sharia law. Here is his response, and we'll talk about it on the other side, inshallah. And for those of you who are not familiar with the senators, so the person who's going to be speaking is Senator Dick Durbin, who is a Democratic senator from Illinois, very friendly and supportive of the Muslim community in
He's
Chicago.
an ally.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's play.
Only because I've heard it from other members of this committee time to time.
Let's take it back a little bit.
What do you know about Sharia?
Let's rewind it just yeah. Okay, go ahead.
You too have had quite a background in the law on the military side and civil criminal side as well. I'm going to follow up with a question which I'm almost embarrassed to ask, but only because I've heard it from other members of this committee from time to time, and it's likely to come up at some point. What do you know about Sharia law?
I don't know anything about that, Chairman. If the question too is whether I would apply the laws of the United States in the state of New Jersey, I can tell you in 21 years of practicing law as a federal prosecutor, as a military officer in the United States Army, as a defense attorney and partner at a prestigious law firm in New Jersey, and a United States magistrate judge, I've never even been asked the question. That being said, I know probably less about it than you do, and I don't know anything about it.
Good. Not good, but certainly we're anticipating criticism which has no basis in fact, because things we've heard. Your answer is solid. Mr. Rodriguez?
You can pause it there. So let's break this down. I mean, there's so much that can be said about what just transpired in that conversation. I think if you look up cringe in the dictionary, we can put that clip right there. So let me try to break it down and get your thoughts. So the first thing that happens is Senator Durbin decides to ask this question, and he's not asking it in a hostile way. What he's saying is that he wanted to preempt some of the Islamophobic, the anti-Muslim conspiracy theories that might be raised by other senators. He said that apparently this has come up privately from other senators. I can probably guess who, based on what we know about certain far-right senators currently serving. And so, as Muslims, we know that the conspiracy theory that Muslims somehow can or want to impose Sharia on the country, we've heard that before. It's a common anti-Muslim refrain of hate groups. And Muslims who are appointed to government positions often get asked this question: well, are you going to uphold Sharia law, or are you going to uphold American law? As if there has to be some conflict between the two always in that person carrying out their position. You don't see that question asked of Catholic judges. What do you think of
anymore?
Right? You don't see that question asked of Jewish judges. What do you think of Hanukkah? Right? That's not a question that gets posed. So the first problem with this is the fact that there were even senators behind the scenes who even had this concern, right? This ignorant concern about Sharia. So that's the first issue. The second issue is that I see is that Senator Durbin decided to ask the question, and I see why he wanted to preempt it. But that was one of the first questions, I think maybe the first question Judge Koreshi got. It is not an ideal way to start off the questioning of an experienced attorney applying for. He's not applying to be the sheikh of the district court in New Jersey. He's applying to be a judge, right? So for that to be the first question out the gate, it's just awkward. Ideally should have been done a different way. I would probably advise Senator Durbin, if someone wants to ask that question, let someone else ask it. They'll get to it later on. Let him address it then, but don't hit him with that right out of the gate. It was awkward. But again, we understand he wasn't trying to be hostile. He was trying to actually help by preempting an issue that he thought might arise later. And then the next issue is, the response that Judge Koreshi gives, which is to say, I know nothing about it. Now, look, Judge Koreshi is not volunteered to be a spokesperson for the Muslim community to explain away Islamophobia, to address or explain Islamic concepts. But to say that he knows nothing about it, it was, I think, puzzling to many of us, because even if you're not a Muslim, if you turn on your TV in America, you've probably heard some discussion of Sharia law, most of it not true. And as Muslims, Sharia is just the Arabic word that refers to the rules of Islam, right? When we pray 5 times a day, fast in Ramadan, don't eat pork, don't drink alcohol, we're all following the rules of Islam, just like a Catholic who attends church on Sunday, Mass on Sunday, is following canon law. So I don't know whether, I can't get in his mind. I don't know why he decided to answer that way. Maybe he really doesn't know much about, Sharia or what the meaning is. Not all Muslims are experts on the Arabic terminology, but that was puzzling. And then, of course, the last thing is that when he says, I don't know anything about it, Dick Durbin responds, good. As if it's good that he doesn't know.
And then he self-corrects.
And then he stops and says, well, not good, but you know what I mean. Your answer. So awkward in many ways, kind of shows you what Muslim public servants have to deal with. Salahuddin and then Robert, what were your thoughts watching that?
No, I mean, it is, as you described it, cringy. And it is a bit upsetting, to be quite honest. The fact that it even had to transpire in the way that it did. You mentioned it yourself. No one would be asked these questions. It's only Muslims whose loyalty is always questioned. It is always assumed that we cannot be fully Muslim and embrace our deen and our religion without having to compromise on our Americanness or our loyalty to the Constitution or our ability to follow the laws in this country or the judge's ability to uphold U.S. laws. So this type of questioning and this skepticism is not really targeted at others. It's always the Muslims that seem to be the ones that have to explain themselves to others. And although it is alarming and concerning, I understand the the intentions of the questioner, but it's an issue we have to continue to address for many years, probably.
Yeah, Robert, thoughts, reaction?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier. Maybe not the best question to have first in the lineup. I don't actually think this question at all ever needs to be brought up because when you look at Judge Qureshi's civil service in the United States, one thing is clear: he's a dedicated American who believes in civic engagement, who believes in being a career civil servant. He's worked his whole life, to promote, the good work of the American government when it's doing it. But I have no question that, about Qureshi's loyalty to America because of his faith. And anytime you ask a Muslim publicly, where are you on Sharia when it comes to how are you going to do your job? Will you do your job by its definition? Do you have ulterior motives? Are you beholden to something else other than being a U.S. citizen? It's not coming from a good place. Now, Durbin, when he asked that, he was trying to mitigate the, probably the Islamophobic concerns that he's been hearing from, the far right committee members that do sit on the Judiciary Committee. But, as an Irish guy from Boston, when I hear stuff like this, it reminds me of, what the Kennedys had to go through when they were, running for office, when, JFK was running for president, when Robert Kennedy was running to be the attorney general. I could never imagine during Robert Kennedy's confirmation hearing, they asked him, is he going to uphold Catholic law or Catholic canon? And, he would have to say, I don't understand anything about the principles of being a Catholic. Or, the chairman responding saying, good, not good, but at least, we can address the concerns of senators who are listening to their allies in the KKK calling you a papist. That was the reality back then. It shouldn't be the reality now. No one who's Catholic should ever be accused of having foreign allegiances. If you're Jewish, following Jewish halakha over the U.S. Constitution, and no Muslim should ever be asked, whether they put their religion before the Constitution or being an American. So I understand where Durbin's coming from, and it came, from a place of good intentions. But the people that were pushing Durbin to ask that question, that's not coming from a good place.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a philosophical point to make, but Muslims don't have to check their faith at their job. Sometimes you may have to. There's some jobs that may be irreconcilable with your faith, right? I could name many awkward examples, which I'm not going to mention, but you can think of many jobs that are perfectly legal in America that no observant Muslim would ever take upon themselves, right? When you work in government, especially the federal government, right? And you are essentially, you're carrying out orders, that can create potentially awkward situations, right? I can imagine scenarios where you may feel some conflict between your personal obligations and your work obligations. That's not unique to Muslims. In fact, it was, I think, Jack Lew back in the 90s, who was serving as, I think, Treasury Secretary at the time. And Bill Clinton needed him to come to the White House to address some issue. And Jack Lew, as an Orthodox Jewish person, felt uncomfortable going as he didn't want to violate the Sabbath. And so I think if I remember the story correctly, he spoke to his rabbi and got approval because of some emergency situation. And so that was, kind of a procedural conflict, right? there might be a substantive conflict potentially. And I think it was actually Amy Coney Barrett, ironically, who wrote a law review article years ago who said there might be circumstances in which a Catholic judge, may by the law have to do something that they find morally objectionable. And her suggestion was the solution is not that the judge should have to violate some basic tenet of their faith, rather let them recuse themselves and grieve about it, right? And so obviously, we don't want a situation where judges are recusing themselves, but if there ever was some conflict, for example, think of one idea, let's say you had someone who was facing execution, right? And let's say and this happens often, by the way, it's very likely the person is innocent, but because of the way the law is written, they can't get a new trial, they can't get a new hearing because some objection wasn't raised at the right time, right? So is that judge, whether it's Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, says, I understand the law says I've got to kill this person, right? But I also know I have an overriding duty to God, right? Might they say, I'm going to recuse myself. I'm not going to have on my conscience killing this person. I know it's morally wrong. Is that something a judge should be able to do? That's an interesting discussion to have. But the point is that any person of any faith could face that potential conflict. Whether you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, a secular humanist could face those potential conflicts, right? And so it should not be Muslims who are being singled out to address these issues like Judge Koreshi was. So with that, we're just about out of time. We ran a little long with the program, but this is an interesting topic, something that's important for various reasons. So I want to thank you, Salahuddin. Thank you, Robert, for joining us today for sharing your perspective. Inshallah, we'll keep the community updated if we get any information about the 2 question marks on this nominee's background. And inshallah, we look forward to more Muslims being nominated to government positions with diverse backgrounds, public defenders, civil rights attorneys, and others who can enrich the judiciary, not only with their diversity, but also with their unique professional experiences. Thank you all so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate your support, especially during the month of Ramadan. Please support CAIR, cair.com/Ramadan to support our important work. And inshallah, we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 3 o'clock for our next episode. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, wa astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayk.